Hey everybody, Max Ada here with Team Juggernaut Weightlifting. We're doing a little series here on cues and what they mean. What we're going to do is kind of cover some cues that I like to use and some of the other coaches we have use to communicate to our athletes things we want them to work on during the lift, things that will help them refine their lifting. It's important to remember that a cue is a term, or it's a couple of words or a small phrase that connects with the athlete and gives them sort of trigger for what has happened before. There's a bigger history there. It's not just that you're saying a couple of words or explaining a lift to somebody with a cue. You're getting them to think about something that they understand and know, and maybe it reminds them to perform the lift a certain way that you've discussed in the past. One recommendation we have when delivering cues to athletes is to really tailor how many cues you're saying to the athlete based on how much weight they're lifting or how many reps they're doing. So our recommendations are that up to about 70%, you can focus on about 3 different things. You can give them 3 cues for those movements because they're lighter weights and they have a chance to focus on them. Make sure that those cues are addressing different components of the lift. So you'd give them a cue for maybe the beginning of the lift, something in the middle of the pull, and maybe something in the receiving position. The second intensity range, above 70% up to about 90%, we want to focus on 2 cues, okay? Again, the same thing applies. We want to have 2 distinct things in the lift that we're working on. So something maybe in the middle of the pull and something maybe at the end or the receiving position. And then finally, 90% all the way through maximum weights, we want to focus on 1 cue. And the main thing here with that 1 cue is that it's working on a single component of the lift and it's getting at something that they might not correct or might not always be doing really well in the lift. It's that one specific thing for them. In competition with those weights, with those near maximum and maximum weights, make sure that you're not explaining how to do the lift. You're not using cues to teach someone how to lift. You're just using it to force them to remember that one particular thing. When someone's on the platform, we want to make sure they actually have unconscious competence, meaning that they're going through the lift without thinking. If the lifter has to focus and think and recall different cues and different things they need to do during the lift, then they're going to end up slowing down, performing worse. They're going to take their mind out of the actual use of their emotional state and that heightened state of adrenaline and start focusing on the lift. It's going to slow them down. Just not a good example, not a good place to be doing that. So overall, really make sure you tailor the cues to the athlete. The athlete knows what those cues mean, and then make sure you're using the right amount of cues the right time. Now I want to show you some of my favorite cues that I like to use with the athletes I coach, and if you find that you're struggling with some of the same issues, maybe these will help you out. So what we're talking about with a tight start is it's easier for me to say tight start, and you remember that to mean that you're tightening up all the appropriate muscle groups. What's really important, what we need you to really focus on, in the snatch, we want to set up so that when we get down by the bar, we've pulled our shoulder blades back and down here, we've locked in our lats, and the pressure is on our quadriceps. This is the essence of having a tight start. Chin is up, eyes forward, everything is set, ready to pull. We're not loose and then having to sort of wind up before we go. We get set in a tight start. From this position, we can start moving. The cue we use to fix somebody pulling the bar around their knees, or if their start position isn't correct, if they end up jumping forward a lot on lifts, what we try to emphasize is knees back. If someone was to pull the bar off the ground and the bar traveled around their knees, as Elaine does here, without moving the knees back, she's pushing everything forward towards the barbell. So what we want to do is have her remember what it feels like to move her knees back out of the way so she can actually get over the bar into the correct position. We say knees back, what we mean is that as she comes up off the ground, she pushes her knees back out of the way so that when she hits the middle of her kneecap, her shins are perpendicular to the floor. She can lower the bar and then practice it again. Knees back, pushes the knees out of the way into the right position. The cue we're going to discuss right now is keep it close. This is a cue we use to reinforce the lifter keeping the bar next to their body as they pull. Because as a lifter pulls, sometimes the bar is going to come out in front of them and loop as it comes back towards their hips. What my lifters know keep it close means is that they need to ensure the bar is next to their shins when they set up, that their lats are tight, and as they push off the ground, they're using their legs and their lats to drive the bar back towards their hips as they stand up. Keep it close is the cue I prefer, but if any of these other terms or any other phrases connect with you and the lifter, go ahead and feel free to use those. The next cue we're going to talk about is Be patient. I like to use this cue when a lifter is moving too early into the second pull. They're trying to generate power right away, initially as the bar passes the knee. They're going to either make contact too low on the thigh in the clean or not even close to the hip in the snatch. What we want the lifter to do when we say be patient is we want that lifter to think about continuing to extend the legs as they stand off the ground and wait for the final last moment they possibly can to actually make an explosion in the lift. That patience is what we're really looking for. Getting the lifter to understand they need to slow down a little bit and get the bar where it belongs before they act. Some other synonyms for that would be stay over the bar, would be weight on it, would be keep your weight in your heels, those kind of things, terms that really just reinforce that the bar is moving back towards you. If any of those sound better or work for you, go ahead and use them. The next cue we're going to talk about is finish the pull. I like to use this cue when somebody ends up cutting their pull. They bring the bar to their hips or their top of their thigh in the clean. When they extend, they don't quite get a complete finish at the top. They're not driving through the ground with their legs and extending all the way up with their arms. This will cause the lifter to miss in front or take several steps to run forward to actually get back to the barbell. It can also cause the bar to swing really bad if they end up using all their hips to deliver power without extending and following through or finishing the pull. At the top of the lift, they're going to extend hard through their legs and drive force into the ground. At the same time, they pull up against the bar and try to generate as much power in this final portion of the lift before they have to go under the weight. Some other common synonyms for this would be extend, would be to talk about push your feet through the ground or follow through. Really, they're trying to get you to just do the same thing. Continue a little bit more time spent extending or driving through the end of that pull. If those terms work better for you or your athlete, feel free to use them. The next cue we're going to talk about is a hard landing. This is a great cue for somebody who's receiving the bar too soft in the top or not moving their feet enough, and this causes them to either press out the weight or just be generally unstable overhead. This can also be a situation where the feet and hands are not locking out together or simultaneously in the lift. What we want the athlete to think about is that when their feet hit the ground, it's the exact same timing as when their elbow locks out in the snatch or when the bar lands on their shoulder in the clean. The intent here is to get them to think about coordinating those two events together. A solid, firm planting of the feet and an aggressive, positive lock of the elbows ensures a really solid lift. Some other common phrases, synonyms for this would be fast feet, hard feet, stomp, and then punch. Those terms all basically sum up the same thing. Feet and hands, feet and elbows locking at the same time. The next cue we're going to discuss is a strong turnover. This is a great cue for somebody who's receiving the bar in a soft, weak overhead position. Maybe the bar's out in front of them too much when they actually try to receive it. When we talk about a strong turnover, what we're trying to get the lifter to do is think about a really positive turnover of the hands and shoulder to place the bar behind their head in a really solid position. The turnover is key to catching the weight in the right place. It's important for us to emphasize that they turn their hands over, that they rotate the bar over to get the bar in the right place with their wrist in the right position. Some synonyms for that cue would be put it behind your head. Really, they're just telling you to get the bar back. If that cue works better for you, then go ahead and use it. The cue we're going to talk about today is hips before feet. This is a great cue. If someone is not making contact with their hip at the same time they extend their feet into the ground, they're going to end up with timing issues. They're going to end up where the bar is not moving upward enough, or their feet have left the ground, or their weight has shifted to their toes too much before their hips have made contact that they don't get any power at the top of the pull. It can look like they're cutting the pull, and to some degree they are, but primarily what's happening is just a bad coordination. They're not using their hips at the right time. When we say to the lifter, hips before feet, we want them to focus on their hips making contact before their feet move, which ensures that the bar starts to accelerate before they actually move under the weight. Those are better. A synonym for that cue, hips before feet, would be something like jump or stomp your feet could work too. Basically anything that really reinforces the lifter is connecting with the bar before they move their feet off the ground, keeping weight on the ground and extending into the top. Thanks for watching our cues and what they mean series. Hopefully some of these cues resonate with you. You can use them on yourself or some of your lifters. If anything stands out as working really well, feel free to comment in the section below. If you like what you guys saw, go ahead and subscribe to the Juggernaut YouTube or check us out at jtsstrength.com.